This raises a little different aspect of it, but kind of gets at the same thing. This is called Children of Cyberspace. The technology tools that children even 10 years older did not grow up with begun to think that my daughter's generation will also be utterly unlike those who preceded it. Researchers are exploring this notion too. They theorize that the ever-accelerating pace of technological change may be minting a series of mini-generation gaps, with each group of children uniquely influenced by the tech tools available in their formative stages of development. So kind of what you get now doesn't make anywhere near as big a difference as what you had when you were between 4 and 12, when it really has an impact. The technology you have available to you really has a deep impact on your future development. So we might not actually have effects between digital natives, thought of as your generation, and dinosaurs. There might be these gradations of change in between based on what folks got exposed to when they were, in the formative years. Okay? So, these issues are sort of at play. They're not clear. There is a lot that sort of says that it's very difficult to rewire us. And a lot of the concerns are in this area. And they have to do with what happens with thought. And they have to do, we're going to get to it, but I'm going to kind of preview it and then let you go for the weekend. In some ways, I guess. I think in some ways it's probably the biggest issue. There are others. You don't read the same. That's probably the biggest issue. There's some other stuff, how you spend your time, and there's some other stuff, but probably at the very bloody center of it, you don't read the same. We just don't understand very well the differences between reading and paper sequentially in deep concentration over an extended period of time, like you do with a book, and screenal reading that's hypertextual, that's superficial, that bounces. Now, you put TV effects on top of that. Attention spans have changed, but more fundamentally than that are the cognitive processes that go together with dealing with text. Now, you know and I know that web text is not great literature, generally speaking. It's just not structured the same. And even our great newspapers have changed their textual approaches because now the stuff's on the web instead of in print. It's a different writing environment. And what we don't know is this. What we do know is how we've evolutionarily processed text. I can tell you, and people of my generation and before, can tell you how to look at some written text and how to work out whether it's true or not. We have 2 centuries of figuring out whether a claim makes any sense, whether it's an adequate representation of reality, whether it's true or false, whether it's been argued right or not, whether there's enough evidence to believe it. We know how to do that because we've had all that development. So then in the last 100 years, we get less and less and less and less and less influence on text, more and more influence on the image and motion and all the stuff that goes into new media, essentially. Right? And a different way of writing text. And now, so the best example that Postman used to always use is you see an ad on television for McDonald's. Restaurant in the background. Boy comes into the scene, sits down on the bench. There's music, there's birds, there's a rainbow. Grandfather Lee type can't tell what he is. Comes in, sits down on the bench, has a bag in his hand, puts the bag on the stone. They open the bag, they take out a hamburger, they each take a bite. There's joy. Cut. Typical McDonald's ad. Is it true? Or is it false? Postman used to say, we have defenses against eloquence. We know we can work it out. We have no defenses against that. It doesn't even somehow respond to true or false. It's like you wouldn't even ask of it, is it true? But then again, that's also now how our news is presented, it's how our politicians are presented, it's how our education is supposed to be presented, it's how everything's supposed to be packaged. What we don't know is if new media, from mass media to new media, we're continuing to lose the ability to deal with how humans think. See, here's the problem. So, put your hand up if you're creative. Put your hand down. Right now, decide what you're going to have for dinner. Quick. Stop. Now, tell me the honest to God truth. Was there a little voice that said, well, gee, my choices are hamburgers or ham? Or were there three pictures that went, ham butt, hamburger? You actually saw pizza. See, humans think in language. Now, there might be one among you who is different. And when you think of things, it's all images. In fact, if you put a word in, it's just so damn confusing you can't think it all. There might be one among you who most of the time when they work stuff out actually hear notes. There aren't many of you among you like that, but there might be one. But you are in the minority and you've always been in the minority. The rest of us, we go, let's see, what should I do when I go home? What am I going to have? We think in language. That's how we think. That's how our brain works. It's a linguistic piece. It works it out in language. New media doesn't work that way. It's hypertextual. Right? Mass media wasn't that way either, but new media isn't either. So that's what we're kind of at the center of it here worried about. Not whether you build new cortex thickness from practicing with a video game. The problem is, the issue really is, how do we process the world? And can that be replaced by this new way of processing the world? Or is it going to take way longer, right, to do it? And then we're rolling this stuff in really fast. That's the issue.